Genetic drift and patterns of macroevolution. Genetic drift happens when the allelic frequencies in a population change due to chance. The smaller the population is, the greater the impact of genetic drift. With a small population, it might only take a few generations before they are all the same color, for example. Genetic drift thus tends to eliminate variation more quickly in small populations. Large populations will tend to have greater genetic diversity. So you can see the original population here has half blue and half red. And in the second generation, third generation, we're seeing more blue. In the fourth generation, one more red. By the fifth generation, we have almost an entirely blue population. Okay, and this is just random sampling where the drift happens just due to chance. The bottleneck effect is a type of genetic drift that occurs when most of the population is killed off due to a chance event such as a fire, flood, volcano, or earthquake. As a result, all of the alleles carried by these individuals are lost. Because there are so few individuals left, there is decreased genetic variability. Once alleles are lost in a population, it is extremely difficult to get them back. No matter how many times these individuals mate in different combinations with one another, they will not gain genetic diversity. The founder effect is a type of genetic drift that occurs when a very small group of individuals populate a new area. They form a new group and are the founders of the new population. The graphic charts the evolution of the population to the fifth generation. So take a look. Here's our original ancestral population, our founder population, which populates in a new area. And look at what happens here. So originally we have a 50-50 red-green split. After the split, in the ancestral population, it's 53-47 red-green. Look what happens generation after generation. You can see in the ancestral population, we get to 57% red and the remainder green. And in the founder population, we go from 20/80 red-green to all red and no green. What if a population lost all its genetic variation? This means they only have one form of every gene. No matter how many times their chromosomes cross over in meiosis, they will not gain the other alleles back. At this point, a population is in extreme danger of extinction. If organisms in a population are all alike, they can only be chosen for or against every time the environment changes. It is probable that there will come a time when all of them will be chosen against. Cheetahs in Africa. Cheetahs used to be widespread throughout Asia and Africa, but have been driven out of their habitats by human expansion and overhunting. Conservationists now estimate only about 7,000 cheetahs remain in Africa today and 50 in Asia. Because most of the cheetah population has been killed off, the population has experienced genetic drift. Zoos have breeding programs where they return cheetahs to the wild. Unfortunately, both the wild cheetah and the zoo populations are nearly identically homozygous. The cheetahs have only one form of almost all of their genes. Mutations are needed to develop different alleles for the cheetah's genes, but the mutation rate for animals and plants is extremely low. The cheetahs would die off before these mutations could occur. The founder effect and the bottleneck effect lead to reduced genetic variation within a population that can make a species less able to adapt to changing environments and therefore less likely to survive and reproduce. Scientists estimate over 99% of all species that have ever existed are now extinct, like the 4 that you see on your screen. Extinction can also be caused by a variety of other factors, including meteor impact, climate change, predation, disease, competition, and degradation of habitat. Mass extinctions have occurred frequently throughout Earth's history, killing off multiple species at once. 5 mass extinctions have been recognized, and it has been proposed that we are in the middle of a 6th mass extinction and perhaps starting a 7th. A mass extinction involves the destruction of over 75% of the existing species due to a catastrophic incident, asteroid strike, volcanic eruptions, or severe climate change. The time frame and some types of the organisms destroyed for the first 5 mass extinctions are listed. The first is the Ordovician-Silurian period, 440 million years ago, where small marine organisms were made extinct. Second, the Devonian, 365 million years ago, killing off larger marine organisms. The Permian Triassic, 250 million years ago, the largest in history, many species, and cleared the stage for the ancestors of the dinosaurs. 4, the Triassic-Jurassic, 210 million years ago, destroying marine life, some land-based insects and vertebrates, and the Cretaceous-Tertiary, 65 million years ago, which killed off the dinosaurs. Many scientists have proposed that we are in the midst of the 6th mass extinction, called the Holocene epoch, which started 11,700 years ago and is related to the impact of human activity and population growth. The extinction rate is about 1,000 times what it would be without human impact. The extinction of many species of animal and plant life is attributed to human hunting and climate change. The extinction rate has increased during the 20th century, and some scientists are suggesting that this could be a new epoch, a geologic time segment with a distinctive characteristic, the Anthropocene epoch. Patterns of macroevolution. There are 4 types of macroevolution: adaptive radiation, divergent evolution, convergent evolution, coevolution. Adaptive radiation is the emergence of numerous species from a common ancestor. This generally occurs when organisms move to a distinctly new environment from the old one, or when there's a major change in the current environment, as in Darwin's finches. You can see the various species of finches and their food sources, the types of bills they have, what types of finches they are, of the various species shown here in the image. Divergent evolution. Adaptive radiation leads to divergent evolution, new species arising from another species. Divergent evolution can arise from disruptive selection. So you can see the original species here and the divergence of a new species shown. Convergent evolution is when different organisms arriving from different ancestors have similar characteristics because they adapted to similar environments. An example of convergent evolution is the sugar glider, a marsupial, and the flying squirrel, a placental. Coevolution is when an evolutionary adaptation in one species is dependent on another species, and usually vice versa. Coevolution requires the presence of another species for survival. One example is the coevolution of monarch butterflies and milkweed. The monarch butterfly and milkweed plant are in a mutualistic relationship. The monarch feeds on nectar of the milkweed flower and lays her eggs there exclusively. This pollinates the milkweed and propagates the species. The larvae and caterpillars feed only on the milkweed leaves and go through complete metamorphosis there, turning into adult butterflies, which then seek out other milkweed. Diverse populations having more genetic variation are more likely to evolve by natural selection. Genetic variation allows populations to adapt to ever-changing environments. Populations with no genetic variation are more likely to face extinction than diverse populations because they are all alike. If an environmental change cannot be handled by a population with no variation, most will likely die. If the population has significant genetic variation, it is more likely that some organisms will have a trait that helps them survive, and the population will continue on.